If you're a Ranger fan right now, you can't be upset where they are in the Eastern Conference Final. Nobody thought the New York Rangers would be in the Eastern Conference Finals playing for Lord Stanley's Cup. Some people probably didn't think they were going to make the playoffs this year. Bringing in a new GM in Drury, bringing in a new coach in Gerard Gallant, and with a team that has a lot of youngsters. This is one of the youngest teams in the NHL. They're still the youngest team in the NHL playoffs as we speak today. You look at the talent that they had, the Lafrenières, the Kakos, the Keatles of the world, and arguably one of the best young players in the NHL in Adam Fox. A goaltender like Igor Shesterkin, who has been fantastic ever since the Carolina series. And I don't mean to be hurtful to the Ranger fans if you think that he had a great series against Pittsburgh, because he didn't. But a first-year goalie in the playoffs, it's not too shabby to go and take your team to the Eastern Conference Finals against the two-time NHL champion. You look at this team as a whole, the Rangers, and you think, wow, this team has so much good young talent that this team is going to be here every single year. And you know, Speedy, as I know, when you get into the playoffs, there's no guarantees. When you get into the playoffs, there's nothing telling you that you're going to be there next year. So when you're a Ranger fan, you sit here today and you're saying, well, we're going to be knocked out. You have to stay confident because you don't know when you're going to be back in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You don't know when you're going to be back in the Eastern Conference Finals. And you don't know that this team will be together as one once again another year.
There are a lot of takeaways for the Rangers getting this far. Win or lose tonight and win or lose in this series is three things. One, they are very battle-tested. They were comfortably winning in Game 7 against the Carolina Hurricanes. They are comfortable coming back from many 2-goal deficits that they've had to overcome in the playoffs. The 3-1 comeback against the Penguins. Yes, backup goalie, still young team. That's a big takeaway. Number two, the instant impact that a lot of these trade deadline acquisitions have had for the young players. The kid line has been the best line so far in the playoffs, but also the instant impact they've had for some of the veteran presence that it doesn't usually happen this quickly overnight. And that's a big thing for the Rangers. A lot of the times we've seen in their history, trade deadline acquisitions not work right away. Keith Yandel really struggled once he came to the Rangers. Rick Nash, well, he was a free agent, but he struggled there. Eric Stahl was a big-time bust with the Rangers. But a lot of these guys they brought over are big contributors right away. And number three, the young players have played the best so far, both forwards and defensemen in the playoffs, and that's a good sign for the future of this Rangers team. Again, whether they come out of this series, we'll see. Hopefully they come back, but down 3-2 going to Tampa will be hard, but good takeaways. Not the way they lost has been painful in this series, but it's not like they're getting blown out either, and that's a great sign for a young team.
Anybody that knows me knows I'm not a Ranger fan.
Yep.
Anybody and their mother knows that I do not root on the New York Rangers. But after game number 2, being up 2-0 against the Lightning, I thought the Rangers had the Lightning's number. They've played so well all season long against this Tampa Bay Lightning team. And even though Point has not played in this series, who's been one of their best players for the last 2 seasons and one of their best playoff players, I have been very impressed with this Ranger team. And if there's any team that can come back in this series, being that they were up 2-0 and then give a team a 3-2 lead going at home in Tampa Bay, it would be the New York Rangers. I'll give you my points why I think they could win tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa Bay. 1, they have a goaltender that can shut a top offensive team down in Igor Shesterkin. Number 2, they have one of the elite young defensemen in the NHL, Adam Fox. And number 3, I believe Tampa looks like the older team. I think the Rangers have more speed than the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think the Rangers need to figure out who they are against this Lightning team in Tampa. They have not discovered themselves since game number 1. Game number 1, where they played against Vasilevsky, who's been fantastic ever since game number 2. He's been a shutdown goalie, and we all knew this was going to happen. That wasn't the same Vasilevsky that we saw in game number 1 and game number 2. And he's gotten better and better in this series as it's prolonged. But I believe the Rangers, if any team can figure out how to put the puck behind a goaltender, it is this team. When you look at guys like Panarin, who really has not shown up in this playoff, I don't care what any Ranger fan says. I don't care if he has 1 or 2 goals in this series. It doesn't matter. This man is making almost $12 million a year. He's one of the highest paid players in all of hockey. You need to show up in big games. You cannot not show up in a game where your team is expecting you to put the puck in the net. And you have guys like Zibanejad, who hasn't had a good series. I'm sorry, he hasn't. And a guy like Chris Kreider, who had 50-some-odd goals this year, was one of the best goal scorers in the NHL all season long. He hasn't played well in this series. These guys, these veterans, have to show up in this game if they plan to move on to Game 7. Everybody, including me, have been taking shots at Igor Shesterkin. And I will say this. I can't say anything bad about this kid. Those 2 goals that he gave up in game number 5, it wasn't his fault. He was screened. The Rangers haven't been the tougher team. Why isn't Reeves playing in the third period, being that he is the tough man on this team? You got to put a scare in this Tampa Bay Lightning team early in game number 6 if you plan to surprise everybody and take this to a Game 7.
Well, Reeves didn't play in Game 5 because they put in Kevin Rooney because Ryan Strome was going to be in and out because of his injury, and Goodrow didn't play at all. So they needed a little more center depth, and yeah, it turned out to be a mistake because Ryan Strome decided to miss an open net, which would have given the Rangers the lead late. Yeah, nice going, Ryan Strome.
I don't know. I know a lot of Ranger fans are like trying to point fingers on why the refs. It was the referees. All right, a lot of fans are like trying to point that it was the refs' fault, that the NHL doesn't want the Rangers to win. Justin Bieber, it has a concert Monday, and it's going to affect the Ranger game. By the way, Justin Bieber just came out that he has a sickness, and he's going to be out for 3 weeks. He actually made an announcement, so it's not going to make any difference what happens in game number 6. If the Rangers win in game 6, there won't be a Justin Bieber concert. They will be able to play in game number 7. And I want to say this. I think it's despicable. Absolutely despicable what happened after game number 5. And it was posted all over social media, almost 3 million views to it. How could a Ranger fan, okay? And this is why I don't go to Madison Square Garden. I've had my own problems in Madison Square Garden over the years going to Ranger and Islander games. As everybody knows, I'm an Islander fan. The despicable thing that this 29-year-old Staten Island kid did to a Lightning fan because he was cheering at the end of the game that his team won. His head wasn't even up. He was walking to the exit, and this Staten Island kid, I don't want to mention his name, turns around and sucker punched this guy in the side of his face and knocked him dead out. The NHL needs to figure out, and the Rangers need to figure out, why wasn't there security because of these actions that we have seen happen plenty of time, not just in Madison Square Garden, around the country. These fans who pay a lot of money to go to these games, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The cheapest ticket to go see a Ranger game was like $400. And they're paying good money to go to Madison Square Garden, not to get knocked out. And for a fan to get sucker punched like that, and by the way, that his life is over. He's got 6 counts of felony, assault. Horrible what happened to this guy.
And he knocked out a witness, too.
The Rangers are going to have to deal with possibly being sued, block the kid up, and throw out the key. This kid should not be out there. He is a psychopath. Nobody does that. Nobody puts somebody at risk, especially when they're cheering for their team. This is sports. Sports is supposed to be enjoyable. Win or lose. You're supposed to not be a sore loser. You teach your children not to be a sore loser. The Rangers don't pay your bills. The Rangers didn't pay you to go and watch them play. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be angry that your team lost. But to knock out a fan of another team because your team lost and you were upset and he was cheering, that's despicable. And the NHL needs to figure this out. And the Rangers need to figure this out because these teams, these multi-billion-dollar organizations need to protect the fans because they're the ones that are paying their salaries.
James Dolan, time to up your security.
Absolutely horrible. That probably stood out more than the Ranger game. Nobody even cares about what happened in game number 5 after that happened. If he wants his superstardom to be that he knocked out a Lightning fan and he's going to go to jail for a significant amount of time, boy, oh boy, you deserve nothing but the best of our jail or our court system because you don't belong out and about. You do not belong free because you are a psychopath, just a nut job.